So welcome back this afternoon to those of you in the room and online. My name is Professor Stephen Peake from the Open University. And I'm delighted and honoured to be speaking here today because the Open University and the RPS have had a relationship for something like 15 years together, where we have taught around about 20,000 students short courses, and that is rising at the moment of about 1,500 to 2,000 a year. And those two courses, I'm absolutely proud and delighted to say that we continue our photographer's journey. And in fact, I have for you in this session, two photographers' journeys. I know what you're all doing. I think, where are the apostrophes? So this session is, I'm going to shortly hand over. That's me done. And we're going to hear from Claire Shepherd next, who has recently taken the first level course. It's now called TG089. It's called Creating and Sharing Better Images, and it was referenced in one of the OCA presentations that just went by. So that's the first one, and I'm delighted to bring Claire to the stage, and I'm going to hand over to her. Thank you, Claire. There's the clicker. Down when you're ready.
Hi, everyone. I'm a complete amateur. I don't have any distinctions. This is really overwhelming because you're all so knowledgeable, but thanks for having me. And I'm a bit nervous, so just forgive me if I'm blabbering on. So I'm here today to talk about this brilliant course, Creating and Sharing Better Images, and hopefully I can give you a little snapshot of the course. My 16-year-old son got involved with this PowerPoint, so he's done all sort of whizzy things with it. So I'll keep pressing the, oh, look, there we go. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about why I chose the course, what I wanted to achieve, my experience of the course, and recommendations and thoughts for the future, really. These are my images throughout the PowerPoint, for better or for worse. So why I chose to enroll, well, it was lockdown. Like many people, it got me thinking about pursuing a hobby that had fallen by the wayside many years ago, and about having a new creative chapter in my life, really. So in August 2020, I launched Bramble and Beach Photography, where I was capturing the landscape and wildlife in the New Forest and Coast. The feedback from that was positive, and it gave me the confidence to take the Open Uni course. That was in April 21, as I wanted to further my skills and really challenge myself. I was fairly confident with composition. I just seemed to be able to do that without thinking about it, but I wanted more technical help. I was worried that I wouldn't understand everything, but I went into the course with a really open mind. And actually, the way the course is designed is very user-friendly and it's easy to understand. I was pleased to learn that I'd be getting feedback from my peers, along with providing critique, as I was keen to progress my hobby and knew this feedback would be invaluable, especially as most of my work would be seen online. And the course guide does state that it provides the basic skills to tackle the first level distinction, which maybe one day I might do, who knows? Yeah, and just increasing my own confidence in photography, really. My experience of the course, yeah, receiving feedback and assessing others' work was a major part of the course, and it does help you to see images properly, as you were saying earlier. But you do need to obviously devote the time to do that, along with the regular coursework. The format online was engaging, enjoyable to read, and you learn a variety of technical and compositional skills. For example, there's blocks on light becoming data and understanding colour, for example. In post-production, I use Lightroom, and the video tutorials for that were really useful, as there's a lot to learn in that area. You do start to think about your own photography goals in the latter part of the course. For example, social media sharing, and there's a block called Finding Your Style, which is really useful. Personally, for me, as I went out and took more photos throughout the course, I found I was a lot more focused due to the assignments, and I also realised the positive effect that was having on my own well-being, which was unexpected. It was great. And course is excellent practice to achieving the first distinction by preparing your final panel of images. And then there's just a little quote from me there. Overall, I learned many useful skills, but perhaps more importantly, the course gave me the confidence, my own ability and style, which I wasn't expecting. And that was mainly due to the feedback received from others, along with looking at my own work objectively. And as I immersed myself in taking more photos, my mental well-being improved too, which was great. This is really short, but I'm nearly finished. I forgot to press that. Recommendations. My motto in life generally is just do it. I'd really recommend the course for beginners and intermediates. It's online, so it can be fitted in at times to suit you. I've got 3 kids, job, etc., as loads of other people have, but I still managed it and didn't get stressed with it. I really enjoyed it. But you do need to obviously plan your time carefully over the 10 weeks. There's a study schedule and things like that to help you. You need to book in time for something called the Open Studio so that you can share and comment on images. Massive part of the course, and that's how you learn. And have the confidence really to critique others' work, and you do get better at that as time goes on. You join the forums and use the resources. And final tip from me would be, wherever you go, take your camera. It goes without saying, obviously. Stories so far for me. The course gave me the confidence, really, going forward. I've had photos in the Telegraph Times, Amateur Photography magazine, which for me as an amateur was, I think I cried the first time I saw it in Telegraph. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how little money they paid as well. But they I've designed my own website. I've produced a calendar now for the 3rd year running, which that's gone down quite well with friends and family. I've got some cards and prints stocked at a holiday resort in the New Forest, a couple of hotels and other little retailers scattered across the area. I did an interview with the Hampshire Daily Echo on the subject of photography for mindfulness, which I really enjoyed. And that's since then, that sort of led on to other things. Again, it's a journey that I'm on that I didn't really know where it was going to lead to. So that's great. And I was asked to do a couple of Instagram takeovers for a holiday company and the New Forest National Park. I've built links for the New Forest because I'm up there every day taking photos. I donate to them through the sale of the calendars, and I'm now an ambassador for the forest. So that means a bit of litter picking, looking out, making sure that it's, being looked after. So I'm passionate about the surroundings, and then I want to help protect it. And I do feel as photographers, when we're out there, we should all do our little bit to help, really, because we do get a bit bad press on that, I think. And I was interviewed here by Alison Webber here at the RPS as part of the Spotlight series, Photography for Everyone, which I was very proud about. Looking at that now, I'm cringing a bit. It sounds like I'm really blowing my own trumpet there. But I think the point is that the course, it gave me that confidence to believe in myself and to achieve these things, really, which I never thought I could do. Oh God, I'm getting emotional as well. It's terrible. I say it's a small business. It's not a small business. It's my hobby, but I want to continue to build on it, really, because it's so satisfying when you do sell your work, your cards and prints, calendars. And actually the backstory from people, like Anissa was saying earlier, it's amazing. During lockdown, people would say to me, wow, this picture that you've taken, I can't get up to the forest. I'm lucky that I live there. And for whatever reason, and the backstories behind why people want to buy that photo, what it means to them. So it's not just about making the money, it's about other people's happiness, really. It's great. It's very rewarding. I love that. And actually on the train on the way up here, I had a little Etsy notification come through, so I've made a sale of a little card. And I messaged the buyer, which I always do, send a little personal message. And she said, "Oh, I thought you were a professional." I went, no, it's just a hobby. And that brilliant. I couldn't ask for a better compliment, really. So that's great. But in the future, I want to continue to be an advocate for photography as a benefit to mental health, as it has been for me during this whole process. I'm involved in a project with Hampshire Wildlife Trust, where I go out with some teenagers and we go out mindfully in nature. whilst they get to learn some basic skills, just a bit of fun with the kids having the confidence to give photography a go and share their experiences. So hopefully I can do some more of that kind of thing. Yeah, and just really would like to be involved in more projects. Don't know how, when, but somehow get involved in that and sort of spreading that message across really about how it can help people. This is my panel of images. I don't like looking at it, it's a bit cringeable because I think my photography has improved quite a lot since then, but that's why I'm going to do the next course next year. And that's it really. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing about more photographic journeys.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Claire. And in a short while, a few slides time, we're going to hear from Gary, who has been doing the second level course that we've introduced with the RPS recently. But before we do that, I want to introduce Shantini Bradstock, who is a senior learning designer at the Open University. Now, I'm a relative newcomer at the Open University. I've only been there 22 years. And I hadn't really heard this title, senior or even learning designer. Actually, you get hired because of your subject expertise. The assumption is that you know how to teach, and that is not the case. And increasingly, we are supported and scaffolded by a new actually set of professionals that come on the scene. Shantini is one of the best I've ever met. And she helped me rescue the very first presentation of the course we're going to hear about, which had a difficult birth, and we've done that before with the RPS. We listened, we went back to the drawing board, we thought, what are we doing? Shantini came along and she got out her Padlet spreadsheets, Trello boards, and all these pencils, and she is responsible really, I think, for the fantastic reviews that the RPS and the OU are now receiving for this second level course. So I've asked Shantini here today to say a few little words about that role as learning designer and how you created the course.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Okay, as Stephen mentioned, I'm a senior learning developer and I specialise in developing courses that empathise with the learner. So we're looking at courses that have a learning journey, a learning experience that they give to the learner. Thank you.
On the bottom.
That's not my slide.
No, actually, what we do have, I'll just interrupt you. We have another member of the Open University, Natalie Foster, who's up there, member of staff who took the course as a sort of secret shopper. And this is her 12 images, not from her ARPS, but this was what led to her getting the ARPS, this is what the second level course was supposed to be addressing, was this gap after you able to use your camera, but you want to then have a purpose and an intent, and our secret shopper achieved it. And Natalie's going to be more involved in the course in the future. That's why that slide's there. Sorry, Shantini.
Okay, so after we had the, as Stephen described it, the difficult birth of the first course, we got together, we've been very thoroughly dissecting through the feedback, and we got together with Stephen, who's our lead educator, and a couple of members of the RPS. And we did what we call a learning design workshop, where we walked through who we thought our learners were and what were the problems that we were trying to solve. What's the gap that we're trying to fill with this course? How is this course going to be different? We wanted to empathise with the learner and understand what they wanted to get from the course. So we developed 5 learner profiles for the course, 2 primary, 2 secondary, and a tertiary profile. And that included our hobbyist, so the person who came along and wanted to do it for their own personal reasons, through to somebody who wanted to make the leap into more professional. So designing the experience, we had myself and Becky, who is another learning designer in our team, and Becky led the workshop. And then I would be there listening and gathering the nuggets of gold that people talk about in between those moments where you're not doing the formal learning design activities, understanding what it was the RPS wanted this course to achieve. Now, it wasn't going to replace the advisory day. It wasn't going to replace the one-to-one sessions. It was meant to be a stepping stone towards the ARPS. So you've done your very technical course with T189, sorry, I'm a T189 graduate, TG089, and then you would move on to TZFM 201, which was meant to focus on mindset and research and planning and becoming much more intentional with your photography. So this is one of the profiles that we developed, and this is the hobbyist. And to explain the hobbyist, what we did was, the idea of the client is not necessarily somebody that's external to yourself. The idea of the client could be, I am my own client. And one of the things that I found absolutely wonderful in Andy Golding's live sessions that he does with our learners was he was getting them to admit who they really wanted their client to be. So while he was helping them understand, stating their intent, he was saying to them, but who's the audience for this? And they'd all go, oh, it's me. And Andy would be going, but who do you secretly want the audience to be for this? And all of a sudden people were saying, I want to exhibit. I want Instagram. I want my friends and family to tell me how brilliant these images are. I wouldn't mind putting in a competition or an award, or I wouldn't mind having it on the ARPS. So he was very good at helping them to see that actually the public face of who their client was, it's just for me, I just take the images to make myself happy. There was often kind of the secret side to it as well. And that was really important because then that changed what they were writing in their statement of intent. And that changed how they were interacting with this course. This course was to take them through, as mentioned, the planning and the research, but it was also to get them to shift their way of thinking, that they were looking at feedback, giving feedback to others as a way of critiquing their own images, as a way of being much more brutal with their own images and saying, actually, no, that really doesn't fit my narrative, my story for my panel. Oh, sorry, wrong way. So this is a quote from Jo Bradford, who I think she teaches a mobile phone photography course. And she helped us develop some of the content for TZFM 201. And in that content, she talks about how learning to do one genre really well is a starting point. It's not the whole journey. And actually, you learn to do it so well so that you can break the rules well. Okay, so some of the intentions that we had for this course, it was around research and planning your projects, being clearer on the audience and the style for who your photography was for, understand the genre and experiment. So we give you a taster into 9 genres, and then we ask you to break some of them and experiment with some of them. Feedback to improve, not only getting it, but giving it. And slight plug here, but attending the ARPS workshop day or advisory day. All part of becoming more intentional. Press the right button. Yep, go. So some of the key themes that Becky and myself pulled out were develop. You're always looking to develop as a photographer. It's about shifting your mindset. The tasters were great because we had people who thought they were staunchly in one genre. And then by the end of the course, they were saying, is it okay if I submit in a completely different genre? I've done a taster and I now want to do that genre. Being braver. So we use a tool called Behance, which is an Adobe product. It's for the visual artist community. And we use that for image sharing, but it's in the public domain. So anybody can go and see your images. And we've had lots of support from that community, giving appreciations, likes and views of people's projects. And as mentioned before, it was preparation for the advisory day. So this is the Behance system. It's very modern, very fresh. It is a visual artist community sharing. It can share. We've got people on there doing graphic design. We're not the only open university on this service. There are multiple around the world. And over the first year, we've had 27.6 project views of our students' projects. We don't submit, none of us mentors or designers submit onto this, it's just our students. 3,400 appreciations of their work. And the monthly average is 2.6 thousand project views per month, with 200 plus project appreciations per month. Now, obviously, we've had roughly about 180 students over the year, because it's only our first year of running. And obviously those stats, I mean, I can see the background of those stats, but that takes us well beyond what our cohorts would be providing to each other. And that's me.
Thank you, Shantini. So it's my great pleasure. So, that's the behind the scenes of what we were trying to do, to intentionally design something which would kind of address this. What we felt was that there was this kind of gap there about how people that don't end up coming to ARPS advisory days, but they're sort of, there was, and I think we could do the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and here is Gary. Please welcome Gary. He's come from the Northeast, and he's going to have a few minutes to tell you and share his story on this course. Thank you very much, Gary. It's downwards if you want to go.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Hi, so I'm Gary Smith. As Shantini said, I did the Discover Your Genre and Develop Your Style course. Before I go on to describe my experience on the course, it's worth starting with where I was at photographically, I think. So I was in a rut. I've been taking photographs for quite some time. Honestly, I was just doing the same thing over and over again, nothing improving. My inspiration from my youth, if you like, was press photographers. And I had the great pleasure of, when I was younger, getting a publication from some photographs that took of a band, but that's another story. But I'd moved to one aim really, which was to take one landscape photograph that I would be happy to put on my wall, and that was where I was at. So I was in a rut. I decided I would like to do some kind of photographic training. I needed to get out of that rut, and actually I did the course that Claire so brilliantly described a moment ago. I won't dwell on that, but this is an image I took on the course. It started a flame in me for photography, if you like. I thoroughly enjoyed that course. At the end of it, I felt a real sense of vacuum, and I didn't know what to do next. But as it turned out, there was a piece of advice at the end of the course of what next steps you could take. And one thing was that there was an upcoming course, which was the one Shantini described, but it wasn't out at that point. So I decided I was going to do the course. So I waited until it came out and enrolled. So when I joined the course, I don't think I really read all that good work that's just been described. It's awful to say, I don't think I really read the description of the course. I was expecting some sort of... Sorry. I was expecting some sort of masterclass where I'd learned some incredible Photoshop techniques or something like that. And I think very early on the word intentional was mentioned, and I clocked that from the beginning. And I think at that point I realised this isn't going to be that development of detailed craft skills and expanding those skills in that way. It was something different. And I think early in the course, maybe a couple of weeks in, there was a particular section that I think it was called "What's Stopping You?" something along those lines. And fellow students, we all had to share our thoughts on what it was that was holding us back photographically. And many people described issues with technique, where they felt they had difficulty with technical skills. Some people had issues with the equipment they had didn't align to the work they hoped to do. But with me, it was almost humiliating to share the reality that my problem was application and effort. So this picture, I'm not particularly proud of this picture. I don't really like it. But so why have I put it up here? So I told the story. But I think it must be decades ago. I'd dreamt of taking an image. Back then, I hoped with my trusty Olympus OM1. And I dreamt of taking an image of the lighthouse at Selwick's Bay, which is at Flamborough Head, for any that wonder where the location is. And I wanted the beam stretching out into the mist and the cliffs in the foreground. So the next thing I was doing, I was checking tide tables, I was checking the sunset times, trying to find a time when the water was at the right height and there was still some light on the cliffs. So this was 3 nights' work to get this picture. There's no foreground in it. It's not a very good picture, but I did it. So I was pleased at that. There was another section, which was ask a tutor or possibly ask Andy. And in that one, you have to share some ideas on photography. And I proposed a project at that point, which was I wanted to tell the story of the Yorkshire coastline, which is a pretty big thing. So I was probably a little bit ambitious with that, but the feedback I got had some merit. I talked about wanting to have some story in the images. I didn't just want landscape images. I wanted images that told something about the landscape. And so this is the panel I submitted in the end, cut right to the chase. I think I made some funny choices. The fellow students told me I shouldn't mix the colour and mono, and I didn't listen to them. But as you can see, I did stick to that initial instinct that there was a project I wanted to do. The different genre we tried were brilliant. I was very tempted for some different genre, especially as it was autumn when we took these pictures and the nights were drawing in, and there was a couple of weeks to put a panel together. However, this is the panel I did. So I just amazing fun taking these pictures. It was fantastic. I covered the entire Yorkshire coast from Spurn Point all the way up to the Tees at Redcar. So you can see there the Salburn Pier, the old lighthouse at Spurn Point, the famous spring-flower fishing cobble at Flamborough, a scene of Bridlington Harbour, a shipwreck or two. There's 2 shipwrecks there, some military work and some coastal erosion, and the steel industry. So that was what I did. So fantastic fun. But then it came to the marking and feedback. So I kidded myself. I didn't care about the mark. Not bothered. I'll take my photographs, enjoy them, blah, blah, blah. Well, I did care. And fortunately, I was successful in the course, if that's the right description. But it was the feedback that I was really looking forward to. And one of the things in the feedback very much resonated with me, especially as it was something that maybe I had a gut instinct of already. In my Yorkshire Coast project, I'd spread myself a little bit too thinly. It was the feedback was much kinder than that. The feedback was that there was potential for multiple projects in the in the work. So thanks for that. And so this is about a photographic journey today. So I guess I've not really talked about the course, I've not described the course, but what has it done for me? So it started my photographic journey really, and the Yorkshire coast really lives on, except I've narrowed it down a little bit. So I'm now up and down the coast, taking pictures of military artifacts that are often under threat from the coastal erosion. I've subsequently found a wonderful photo book in the RPS bookshop, which is a similar project, but covering all of Britain, which is amazing. But yeah, so this is the work I'm doing now. So I'm having loads of fun researching. This is the intentional photographer that we talked about. So researching, where are all these artifacts? Which ones are at risk of falling to the sea? Because I want to get those before they go. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment. I still want to take that impressive landscape, but for now, this is where my passion lies. So I won't dwell on this slide, but this is just a date span point recently, and I just put some pictures on there. There is a rogue in there from another place on the cliffs, but these are the kind of images I'm taking. I've got hundreds, and I'm kind of hoping at some point. I don't know what the audience is. I say for myself, but I'm hoping to assemble a photo book from the images. But what advice would I give to anyone if they wanted to take the course? I would say I would highly recommend it. I would say expect to work hard. I think that the course recommends about 10 hours a week. Well, there's no rules, you can do more if you want. So invest yourself fully in it, follow your own instincts, but keep an open mind to advice. Don't put those colour images in. And maybe inwardly reflect and think of yourself, about yourself as a photographer, and what you're passionate about doing. So I thought it would be funny to finish with this slide. So this is distinctly not the Yorkshire coast. This is a recent family holiday, and like everyone in the northeast, St Mary's Island near Whitley Bay, with a lighthouse on it, lovely photo subject. But unbeknown to the other people on the coast, I was taking a picture of a pillbox. And if you look really closely in the extreme right, there's the old ranging post from the gun battery down the coast. So I'd just like to finish by saying a huge thank you to everyone for listening today. Fellow students on both of the courses actually, and course tutors and professionals who've been a great inspiration, and the Open University and the RPS for putting together a wonderful course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. And actually, a great deal of that brilliance is it's Shantini and her design, but it's also Andy Golding and his delivery, because Andy's leading the delivery of how this teaching is getting done. So there's kind of two bits of it: the design and the planning, and this is in theory what will happen, and then you get Ask Andy. So over to Andy if you want to say a few words, or we'll follow up Janet's instructions carefully, I think.
Thank you. So I have a two-pronged mission here, really. One is that I'm a trustee, steeped in great knowledge about particularly distinctions and photographic education here and throughout the RPS. But I've just had to lead into the fact that I do work on this module, and it's amazing. And it's part of what we can see today, that are many, many journeys that we can take through photography, many of which will lead you to a distinction. So if there are any questions about this course, I can answer many of them, but not half as many as Shantini, who has taught me to be a really good online teacher and given me the framework in which to flourish. And my journey is continuing as well as an educator. So if there are any questions, we can take them
Online.
Yeah. We'll take them online, and we'll take them offline. So my next task is, questions. My next task, though, is to round off the day thinking about our distinctions, which are just astonishing. And the amazing thing is I walked to the back, earlier on, and I've never met David Brodie before in my life, and I walked up to him and said, "Hi, I'm Andy Golding, I'm David Brodie." And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm a trustee and I'm going to talk about distinctions." And he said, "Oh, distinctions, they force you to do the work and keep you going. They take you on a journey and they give you this sense of community." I mean, it was gold dust, because that was my theory and he just proved me correct. And this is the way that it can work, because what we can see is that there are our workshops, there are one-to-ones, there are courses, and there's also a route through the OCA and there's a route through the Open University, and you can find all sorts of routes to self-fulfillment, to great photography. The distinctions down there to support us in the drive, they pull us forward, and then they give us this sense of achievement. And what I'm going to do then is just talk about how they can work and function for you. If you've taken distinctions already, you'll know some of this and you'll know the feeling, but I'm here to proselytize and say what a great thing it is. What a wonderful thing photographic education is, and how great to get an achievement at the end. So I think I'm going to show you some very, very early photographs, actually, because what happens in the first stages of photography, I believe, is that we take the photographs of the things around because we're fascinated by photography. And in fact, my very first photograph was of a zebra in Bristol Zoo, just because the animal was there. My granddad had given me a camera. Sad to hear that Bristol Zoo was about to close, but from an animal welfare point of view, yeah. But anyway, I mean, not that it was bad, but I loved it. It's the very first place I went with a camera. So this is a theoretically, oh God, Michael's here. Dr. Michael Pritchard, you see. So now I have to be very accurate about my history. This may be one of the first photographs. It's pretty much a first, isn't it? It is. And I think that Niepce, in taking this photograph, he was interested in his journey. It was a voyage of discovery, because this was the founding moment of photography. He went on to develop the process. And then we have De Geer, who was also working in his very early stages of photography. They were asking the same questions. What is this for? They were asking the scientific and the artistic questions. It was leading them to these products. And then we have our very own Lakel Abbey photograph here by William Henry Fox Talbot. Slightly murky, but a very wonderful thing as the first negative, right, Michael? It's really difficult having the leading expert in the room with you, because normally I have an element of bluff. I always say to my students, just check, because there's a good degree of truth in it, but it's me, remember. Well, what's interesting also, I thought I'd better show you a couple of better, later, so more photographic looking ones in his window. And what's fascinating straight off is that we see that he then went off and photographed in the same way as Niepce, more or less the same boulevard, actually. Quite interesting. Very early moment of, that's a really nice thing to photograph. I'll go and do the same myself. So in the first instance, we then take these photographs, but then there's this mission. What are we doing it for? Why are we doing it? What can I do with it? Where should I go with it? So there's the licentiateship, which stands before us, and it has criteria, which I'll show you. Another one. I won't show you. I'm going to read them out because it's in this slide here. So the criteria are most significant. The criteria of what you need to get your projects to line up with. So they stand there as this kind of thing that you're aiming for. So in the licentiateship, I'm going to read this because Andy Moore, our distinctions manager, will want me to be exactly accurate. So the licentiateship, all applications for the licentiateship distinction will be assessed against the following criteria: camera work and technical quality, visual awareness, communication, and overall impression. Got that? Right. So that's why we start to build them. And these are the kind of works that we get as a result of the ambition to get the licentiateship. It's not just a thing, it's a direction of getting there. You measure your photographs against the criteria because we believe that these are the values of a good piece of work. And this is a piece by Abhijit Kumar Banerjee, who's produced these wonderful works, which did extremely well against that set of criteria. So these photographs, they measure up to the other in the round criteria, which is that they should be visually fascinating and significant and give us an understanding of control of technique in art and science. That's a bigger picture about photography. So the distinctions drive a sense of purpose. They give us a framework and a rationale for our photography. And this, I think, is the most supportive thing, like the courses that we do, like the journeys that we go on. And supporting this journey is not just those criteria set up there and we're driving towards and making our projects. There's a whole panoply of support. So the RPS has its fantastic network of volunteers. We've got special interest groups, we have regions. They give us a sense of community because again, my new friend David was saying that often photography can be quite an isolating, separate pastime. And you go into these communities and you feel a sense of belonging. You feel a sense of belonging, don't you, David? And I'm sure we all do. Look, we're all here today, great sense of belonging. So we have the panel members who sit, the chairs who give their time, the judgments, and those who give one-to-one sessions in our support. And they all bring their expertise to measure our success and encourage us to continue to learn and achieve at the highest possible levels. So inevitably, along the way, I'm going to show you some really lovely success stories from our photography. This is Gladys Perrier's RPS. Here's the panel layout. So what we're looking for, and I think the pattern was true through the previous talks from the OCN, the Open Universities, is to give us this mission to create a coherent project, which will increase our knowledge and insight for our artistic progress. Look at the detail on that, it's fantastic. So there we are, these are the detailed pictures from this panel, as you can see. And we've got Glyn Patton's ARPS here. So we move on to a different set of criteria, a different set of ambitions. So you lead on, you come to go through the LRPS, and then, just as the courses that we've heard described try to get you to more focus and more self-intent, the associate criteria involve a statement of intent that defines the purpose of the work, identifying aims and objectives. And we'll come back to that, because that's a really valuable thing that some people find very difficult to do and even wonder why it's there. It should be a cohesive body of work that depicts and communicates the aims and objectives set out in the statement of intent, a body of work that communicates an individual vision and understanding, a high level of technical ability, and an appropriate level of understanding of craft and artistic practice. So let's see whether we've got that here. Well, I think we do. So this statement of intent, let's come back to it. What it fundamentally does is to bring your own description of what you're going to do. And I don't know whether Gary would back this up, but sometimes that's the game changer, really. That you start with just trying to photograph the world around you, the people, the friends, the things, but then we set people to work on this statement of intent, because that's the criteria you're going for. So you have to have one, otherwise you won't get your ARPS. But why? Because it asks you who, what, why, when, and how. It makes you become actually a subject expert. You're a subject expert now, aren't you? In military installations up the coast, and you're going to be worldwide. So you become, it forces you to become the expert as well as a photographer. And we've seen that again in our artist presentations today. So that's what I think it does. And it frames a genre of the distinction at ARPS level that you apply for. So it's genre linked for us, okay? Did you get a good photograph of that? Was the exposure correct? Was the focus spot on, and did it have intent? Okay. So you put that together in relation to the genre that you're going for. I mean, many of you, again, I know all those, but this is to get that taste of why go for a distinction, why get this panoply of education, get there and get this mark distinction. Landscape documentary, natural history, contemporary travel, visual art, applied portraiture, photo books and film, which is some of the genre that the Open University investigates and sees how you negotiate them. And I'm all for combining them, but maybe I better not say now. Not insofar as in an artistic production, I would never mess with this. I would never mess with this. But in artistic production, one often combines genre in a very subtle way. That is fixed and true. So this is an ARPS. This is Neil Goodwin's ARPS. And this is the panel layout. And this is the statement of intent. Now, the statement of intent is a wonderful thing, in my view, once you break it down into components, which gives you the drive to get your project together. So it's three things, I believe. It's your aims and objectives, your rationale for it, but it also, the best of them, combine an introduction to your work, which can then go on to be used as an artist statement or an introduction to a publication. It can frame what the work is about. So you don't just use it, I'm just going to do it for you lot because you've asked me to. You actually think inwardly, what am I doing with this? And how would I just present the key ideas that frame my project so people will understand it better? Because that relation, that image text thing is quite key to how you want people to interpret your work. And this, you see, is a very good framing and a key in to this wonderful project about Blackpool. It's about it behind the glitzy facade. I'm not going to read it all because, you can see how well written this is and how it will define the projects to come. So it's been a two-fold project. It's not going to last much longer, honestly. It's all going to come together on a wonderful fruition with this splendid look at Blackpool, but not as we necessarily think of it. And this documentary piece, again, let's just find out, I just want to recap. This is a statement of intent, which frames the work that's been the guide for the photographer to make their work. And the work comes together as a framework around these statements. And I think what's fascinating about this whole process is that you can see the world around you in a different way, because this is someone who's politically interested, actually in Article 50 and Brexit, and seeing how people responded to it. And again, that piece of information is quite key to understanding the work, but it's been driven by the process of the criteria of the distinction. And it becomes what I love about the way the documentary is 1 minute of the moment, and then the next, a fascinating historical document, which goes on, and its historicalness and its meaning changes through time. There we all are. a glorious exposition of photography, I think. And finally, Marissa Roth's piece, which is about women in war. So we will end on this process, which I think brings together the whole day. Where you get to on your journey can be in so many, you can find so many different paths to where you're going, so many different support mechanisms through universities, through colleges, through our network of workshops, through our speakers, through your involvement, and with these distinctions which lead you on and on to progress and achieve more and more. And a final piece to think and contemplate about the significance of work that can be produced through our own internal process of gaining distinctions. Finally, just a collection of some of the panels that I've been looking at recently towards this. So I'd just like to say in closing how humbled I am by the work that gets produced from our journeys. You know, today we've seen such glorious works from every point of view, literally up, down. Still got vertigo, actually, from some of those. We've seen insights into people we would never know. You would never know. That your insights into people in these were just amazing. You know, so we see a world through our photography that gives us an insight into a world we would not otherwise see. And it's all about you producing these photographs and giving your vision back to us. It's a wonderful process to be involved in. And as you can tell, I'm a huge enthusiast for it. So that's my section finished. I'd better seek guidance.
Okay.
But what I should do next, because, you know, I'm used to being told what to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was just being told what to do by John. Okay, well, you and me in the same boat.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Andy, for that. I mean, distinctions are so important to the society and have been for decades and decades. And I'm sure Michael could tell us the history of the distinctions from the very beginning. But it's great to have Andy present that to us. It's great being on the Board of Trustees with them as well. We became trustees in 2019 and stuck through thick and thin so far. So thanks for that. Unfortunately, we are over time, and Janet has very kindly offered to put her presentation onto another occasion, which is about groups and regions. And I think that's probably a good idea for two things, really. One, so that we don't go any further over time. But secondly, because I know there's great things planned for what to do with groups and regions and how they will help us on our photographers' journeys. So Janet, thanks for that, and we'll pick up on that later. So that is the last. Andy was the last presentation of the day, and what a marvellous guy to finish with. So thank you very much for joining us at the RPS AGM wraparound event. I must again thank Janet and the team behind those black doors for facilitating this technically today. It's been quite a challenge, and just amazing how Janet's pulled it all together. Obviously, there's some little things, niggles to sort out for next year, but we will start planning today, I'm sure, for next year, the highlight of the RPS year, the AGM next year, same weekend. And I wish you a safe home. Those who are at home already, well, put the kettle on. Job's done. Thank you very much indeed.